It was a wet and windy morning, however we needed to break camp quickly and say goodbye to our other UK Overlander members, as we had a full day's laning planned around Sailsbury Plain. As we hit the road, the skies opened. Luckily for us, the Rain X was doing its job keeping the visibility to an absolute maximum. We even managed to convince Dara from Tough Trek to come exploring with us on the shiny 110, on the condition the lanes weren't too scratchy. We soon hit our first lane, a gentle one to begin with, on the outskirts of the plain. This is when we also had our first encounter with fellow countryside users, although these horses weren't too fond of the hillocks, which forced us to cross-axled over the deep ruts.
Oh, Jack, stop!
Yeah, they seem a little bit nervous, them horses. Turns out, I was still in two-wheel drive, which didn't help the situation. Shortly afterwards, a brake was required to let an excited dog out for a sniff.
Jay, I'm just going to let the dog out because he's getting a bit anxious.
Yeah, no problem. What distance did you say that?
Between the last, how many is it in? Does it go to 10? Does it go, so 3.9 and then 4? Yeah. So 6, 7.
Gets a bit low down here.
Alright, I'm watching your route, you're okay.
We were shortly back on the road, heading towards Larkhill Artillery Range.
Red flag, that means they're firing.
Yeah, the book says that only applies to the land when riding, so as long as you stay on the main track. I had our next track marked down as technical, so we decided to jump out and walk the route.
The ruts are quite deep.
They're really deep.
You know what? I'm going to give this one a pass.
You reckon?
Yeah. This has been driven by lifted vehicles.
Yeah.
So as you drop down into that, and you're on the high side,
The bottom
yeah,
of it.
you'll just scrape the bottom. And then steps like this one as well. Easily be cross axle. See that?
Yeah, someone's bottomed out already. Look.
Yeah, look, all right down through there. Yeah.
Would have been alright if the ground was a little bit soft.
Yeah, and then here, this is really quite naughty. Look at this one.
No, not a chance.
Whoa. No. Maybe in my old Suzuki.
Nah, not a chance. We got it.
No. And look, see, they've even rubbed their tyres off.
Yeah, I don't know if that's been.
I bet they've come up actually.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's probably someone's trying to come up with that, isn't it?
I think this one is a discretion.
Yeah. No. Not when we have to be driving for 10 days.
No.
Don't want to fuck a diff or something.
Yeah, 'cause, I mean, this one is quite naughty.
Knowing your limits is key to overlanding, and this track was way out of hours. Fearing further trail and possible vehicle damage, we turned back, heading towards the main track. It was at this point we waved goodbye to Dara as he faced a 2-hour drive back home, and the day started growing short. We pressed on, however, exploring a few more tracks before the end of the day.
So if you find villages, you just follow it all around them.
No, the villages are like an isolated pocket.
Makes you laugh. There's no need. You could just go on that track.
Yeah, but this one's obviously a bit more better for off-roaders. That's like a.
I know.
I had this track marked down as possibly scratchy. However, nothing prepared us to what actually happened.
It's not feel like just grass. I see all the midges.
How does this go?
Too long? It's from 10.6 to 11.3.
due to lack of off-road experience and pure panic, I had hit that track too fast, causing violent movements which scared both of us. We decided to call it a day after that and headed towards camp. Just arrived at Stonehenge touring park. Got set up and assessed the damage from Sailsbury, and yeah, missing a mudguard, as well as carrying on in a turf of grass that's stuck in the bead of one of the front tyres. So I'm gonna have to go and get rid of that. Check the fluids and stuff, make sure that nothing's cracked, spilled, leaking, and yeah, chill out now. It was an early morning for us that day, as we had a lot of distance to cover to reach our next campsite in Exmoor. But first, we decided to swing by Stonehenge, as we're so close to it. We were disappointed, however, to find out the only way to see this national monument was to pay for a guided tour.
There's a band-aid tour.
Refusing to pay for something which should be free and available to all to see, we headed towards the main activity for the day. The small village of Cheddar is famous for two things. One, the large system of caves that surrounds the village, and two, the original origin of cheddar cheese. The caves were formed millions of years ago, mainly during the ice ages. Permafrost would block the cave up with ice and frozen mud. When this melted during the summer months, water was forced to flow up and along the surface, slowly carving out the main gorge. Water was then forced back down through the limestone and into the cave systems, which created these massive big chambers that you can see today. In 1893, Richard Goff found, excavated and opened the cave up to the public. Although a large proportion is still submerged underwater and is only accessible by cave diving. The locals used the dark and cold caves to store their cheese while it was maturing. This tradition still stands today, more than 100 years later, where you can still buy 12-month matured cheddar cheese from the many shops around the village. Finished with cave exploring for the day, we headed to Jacob's Ladder Tower. Climbing the 322 steps will put you at the top of the village lookout tower, which was used to watch for invading forces. Now, it's simply a scenic viewpoint, and what a view it is. After grabbing a bite to eat and stocking up on as much cheese as Charlotte could carry, we headed towards Exmoor National Park, where we would find our third campsite for the trip. This turned out to be my personal favourite, as we were camped right next to a little stream that ran alongside the site. We were joined by a small flock of sheep, which had either escaped from the neighbouring field or were allowed to roam between the campers. Either way, it made for a peaceful end to a long day.